There's a route on the water that runs 6,000 miles in one giant loop around the eastern half of this country. Up the rivers, across the Great Lakes, down the Atlantic coast, through the Gulf, and right back to where you started. They call it the Great Loop, and it is the trip of a lifetime. And every spring at the marina, the coffee crowd will tell you the same thing, that you need a $250,000 boat to run it. That is a flat-out lie. I have watched ordinary couples slip the lines and run the whole thing in a boat they paid $40,000 for. One slow diesel, a solid fiberglass hull, a survey in their hand, and a grin on their face. By the time this video is finished, you will know exactly which $40,000 trawler I would untie tomorrow to run the loop, and which ones I would walk straight past, no matter how good they look in the listing photos. Now, here is the part the broker in the clean polo shirt will never say out loud. He does not want you spending 40 grand. There is no commission worth chasing on a $40,000 boat. He wants you on the shiny new trawler at the front of the dock, the one with 2 engines, a joystick, and a payment book that follows you around for 15 years. So he will tell you the cheap boats can't make the trip. He is wrong, and I am going to prove it to you. Rule by rule and boat by boat. First, understand what the loop actually throws at a boat, because that is what decides which trawler can do it. You go up the eastern seaboard on the intracoastal waterway, a protected ditch behind the barrier islands. You cross or skirt the Great Lakes, where the water turns into an inland sea, and the wind can stand up 4-foot waves in an afternoon. You drop down through the heart of the country on the rivers, the Illinois, the Mississippi, the Ohio, the Tennessee, locking down through 150 dams. And you finish across the top of the Gulf and back up the coast of Florida. Big water, skinny water, fixed bridges, and long, lonely stretches with no fuel. A boat that can handle all of that for $40,000 has to be chosen carefully. So let's talk about the rules that actually matter. The first rule is the one that catches more dreamers than anything else. Air draft. That is, the height of your boat from the waterline to the very top, the hardtop, the radar arch, the antennas, all of it. Somewhere up near Chicago, on the route that ties the Great Lakes to the river system, there sits a fixed railroad bridge with just over 19 feet of clearance. 19 feet and 1 inch on a good day. That bridge does not move. It does not care about your dream. If your boat stands taller than that, the loop is closed to you right there, full stop. You either find a way to drop everything on top of the boat, or you don't go. This is why a low, sensible trawler beats a tall flybridge sedan every single time. The boat I am about to name ducks under that bridge with room to spare. Most of the pretty boats the broker pushes do not. The second rule is water draft, how deep your boat reaches below the waterline. The loop is not all deep blue water. There are skinny stretches, river bars, shoals, and lock approaches where the water gets thin in a hurry. You want a boat that draws under 4 feet if you can find one, and you never want to be past 5. A deep-keeled ocean boat will have you kissing the bottom in places a shallow trawler floats right over. Keep your draft shallow and you will sleep at night instead of staring at the depth sounder. The third rule you have heard me preach before, and I will preach it again right now. 1 engine, not 2. A full displacement trawler moves slow on purpose, 7 or 8 knots, and it gets there on a single, easy-going diesel turning low and lazy. 2 engines mean 2 of everything. 2 sets of filters, 2 impellers, 2 transmissions, 2 raw water pumps, and a fuel bill half again as fat for every hour you run. On a 6,000-mile trip, that is not pocket change. That is thousands of dollars and 100 extra jobs you never needed. Every boat worth your 40 grand has exactly 1 engine, and you want it naturally aspirated and all mechanical. No turbo to blow, No computer to die on a Sunday night 100 miles from the nearest mechanic. The fourth rule is range, and people forget this one until they are sweating over a fuel gauge. There are long, lonely runs on the river system, one stretched down the Mississippi and the Ohio where the fuel docks are few and far between, better than 200 miles where you cannot count on filling up. A good loop trawler carries enough diesel to run 300 or 400 miles without blinking. The slow single diesel helps you here too, sipping a couple of gallons an hour instead of guzzling 15 like the fast boats do. And the last rule is simple: size. You want something in the 32 to 38 foot range. Big enough for a couple to live aboard in comfort for the better part of a year, small enough that two people with ordinary knees can dock it in a crosswind and fit it neatly through the locks. Remember, you will lock through about 150 times. You are going to get very good at handling your boat, and you want one that does not fight you every time the wind pipes up. So now you know the rules. Air draft under 19 feet, draft under 4, one simple diesel, real fuel range, 30-something feet of honest boat. Hold all of that in your head because those rules knock most boats clean off the list, and they point like an arrow straight at the winner. Let me start with the boat everybody wishes they could afford, just to get it out of the way. The Grand Banks 32. It is the prettiest trawler ever to float. That glowing white hull, that honey-colored teak, and people run the loop in them all the time. Here is the problem for your wallet. A clean fibreglass Grand Banks 32 does not sell for $40,000. The good ones are $60,000, $70,000 and up. What 40 grand buys you in a Grand Banks is a tired one. Soft decks, a leaking fuel tank, neglected wood, a boat that will eat the difference and then some before you ever cast off the first line. The Grand Banks is a wonderful loop boat. It is just not a $40,000 loop boat, and anybody who tells you otherwise is selling you a project with a famous name painted on the side. So let's get honest about what 40 grand actually buys, and walk the two boats that genuinely fit. The first real contender is the Mainship 34 Trawler, the classic one, built down in Florida before these boats got complicated. It is a single diesel boat, simple as a claw hammer, and they built a lot of them, which means parts and know-how are everywhere you look. It rides low, so it ducks under that 19-foot bridge, and it draws under 4 feet of water, almost like somebody drew it up for the loop on purpose. A clean, classic Mainship 34 lands right in your budget, somewhere in the $30,000 to $40,000 range, and the rough ones go for less. The good ones came with a single Perkins or a Cummins diesel, slow, mechanical, the kind of motor a man can learn every inch of in one weekend. No joystick, no pod drive, no touchscreen waiting to brick itself after an update the dealer charges you to install. There is a wheel, a throttle, and a boat that does exactly what you tell it. If your budget is tight and your patience is short, the Mainship 34 will carry you around the loop and never break your heart. But the boat I would actually hand the keys to, the one I would untie tomorrow with $40,000 in the deal, is the Marine Trader 34. Walk down any dock from Florida to the Chesapeake and you will trip over one of these sitting quiet, a for sale sign fading in the window. The asking price hovers right around $40,000 for a sound one, and the projects change hands for half that. People stride right past them, and here is why. The teak. All that exterior wood means weekend after weekend of cleaning and oiling, and folks take one look at the gray, weathered handrails and assume the whole boat is rotten from the inside out. It is not. Underneath that gray wood is a hand-laid, solid fiberglass hull, thick as a phone book, built in Taiwan back when labor was cheap and nobody had yet figured out how to make a boat thin enough to cut costs. The cosmetics scare people off. The bones are bulletproof.
And it checks every single rule we just laid down. It rides low enough to clear that railroad bridge near Chicago. It draws under 4 feet so the skinny water does not scare it. It carries the fuel and the room a couple needs for a year aboard. And down in the engine room, you will usually find the one motor I trust above all others for a trip like this. A single Ford Lehman 120. Let me tell you why that engine is the whole argument. The Lehman was built off an industrial Ford block, the kind of motor designed to run a generator or a piece of farm equipment for decades without complaint. It is naturally aspirated, so there is no turbo to blow. It is all mechanical, so there are no sensors to chase down at the worst possible moment. Run it easy at trawler speed, and that engine is good for somewhere between 12 and 14,000 hours before it even thinks about a major overhaul. Stop and chew on that. Nobody puts that many hours on a pleasure boat in a lifetime. The oil filter cross-references to a common part that fits half the trucks built in this country. You buy it off the shelf for a few dollars. The spares you actually carry aboard fit in a shoebox. A couple of impellers, a set of fuel filters, a spare belt, a rebuild kit for the lift pump. At trawler speed, she sips around 2 gallons of diesel an hour, which means real range on the long river runs and a fuel bill that will not frighten your accountant. That is a boat that looks like serious money from 10 feet away and costs you about what a hobby costs to keep. That is why, for $40,000, the Marine Trader 34 is the boat I would point my own family toward to run the Great Loop. If this is the kind of straight talk nobody else on the dock is giving you, do me one favor and tap that subscribe button.
I put out a new one of these every single week. No hype, no nonsense, just the stuff the salesman hopes you never figure out. Now, I am not going to lie to you, because that is not what we do here. The Marine Trader has 2 catches, and you need to know both before you hand over $1. The first is that teak. The same wood that makes her look rich has to be cleaned and oiled, or it goes gray and starts to check in the sun. Most Smart Loop owners eventually pull the worst of the outside teak and glass the decks over, and they end up with a better boat than the day it left the factory. The second catch is hidden. A lot of these were built with black iron fuel tanks that can rust from the inside after 40 years, and some have soft spots where water got into the deck core. None of that is a deal breaker. It is exactly why you put a surveyor on the boat before you buy. And if a couple wants a little more room to spread out for a full year aboard, there is a third boat worth a hard look, the Alban 36. It is a true double-cabin trawler, 2 staterooms, a real galley, the kind of layout where 2 people are not crawling over each other for 12 months straight. A sound one runs in the 40s to low 50s, so it stretches the budget a touch, but it is built the old way. Hull and deck through-bolted under a heavy cap rail, and a lot of them carry that same simple diesel. If you have a little wiggle room above 40 grand, and you want to live aboard the whole way, the Alban earns its keep. Now here is the part the broker walks right past while he is busy talking about sunsets. The $40,000 price tag is just the start of the conversation. The engine is cheap to run, but the boat is not free. You will pay for a slip at the marina every month.
You will haul her out once a year, pressure wash the bottom, swap the zincs, and roll on fresh paint. And that is real money. Insurance has gotten brutal lately, especially on older boats. And before you buy anything on this dock, you pay for your own marine surveyor, never the broker's buddy, to crawl every inch of that hull with a flashlight and a moisture meter and hand you a written list of everything wrong with her. A real survey runs you $20 to $25 a foot in this market. There is no such thing as a $200 survey, no matter what the man in the polo shirt tells you. That few $100s is the cheapest insurance you will ever buy, because it is the difference between buying a solid boat and buying somebody else's $50,000 mistake. So add it up honestly before you sign anything. A sound Marine Trader 34 for $40,000. Call it another 5 to 10 to sort out the teak, the tanks, and whatever the survey turns up.
Then plan on $10,000 to $15,000 a year to actually run her around the loop. Fuel, slips, insurance, and maintenance. Know the real number, not the asking number. Do that math with your eyes wide open, and the trip of a lifetime is suddenly within reach of a regular person on a regular budget. So there it is. You do not need a $250,000 boat to run the Great Loop. You need one that ducks under a 19-foot bridge, floats in skinny water, runs on a single, simple diesel you can fix yourself, and carries enough fuel to make the long, lonely stretches. The Marine Trader 34 does every bit of that for around $40,000. The Mainship 34 is right behind it if you want American-built and even simpler. The Alban 36 is your move if you want more room to live, and the Grand Banks will tempt you all day long, but at this budget, it will bite you. The folks who already figured this out are out there right now, untied from the dock, watching the sun come up over a different river every week, in a boat that owes them nothing and costs them less than a new pickup truck. The brokers are hoping you never run that math. Now you have. So tell me down in the comments, and be specific because I read these. First, which leg of the Great Loop scares you the most? The open Gulf crossing, the big water on the Great Lakes, or the long river run down to Mobile? Second, are you a single-engine man, or do you still believe you need 2 engines for a trip like this, and why? And third, if you had exactly $40,000 in your hand today, would you grab the Marine Trader, the Mainship, or hold out and save for the Grand Banks? Drop your answer below. Hit that subscribe button if you got something out of this, because next week I'm pulling apart the 3 boats that look perfect for the loop in the photos and will quietly strand you 100 miles from the nearest yard. I'll see you on the water.